Hey guys, a topic that's, we get asked a lot, I think both of us, is, young founders come up to us and say, I saw you guys raise some money. In our case, we raised $450,000 in 2011. How did you do that? How do you approach fundraising? So I thought it might be interesting, especially if you're a first-time founder and you don't have, previous acquisition under your belt or previous startup under your belt. Some of the things we've learned or anecdotally that worked well for us. What would you say is that?
Yeah, I think the key one is for us in terms of learning, especially based on being a first-time founder, was that we found that you have these top three things that investors look for, right? You have vision, team, and traction.
Yeah.
And I think all we quickly learned when we started to try and fundraise was that for us, team and vision were both pretty weak.
Yeah.
Team because we've not done anything before, we don't have, we're not ex-Facebook, whatever.
Yeah.
We don't have previous acquisitions or anything. And then in terms of the vision, it was tough for us because I think we always approach Buffer as just how can we build something that provides value and that we can start to generate some revenue and work on full time. And then also being in social media is such a young market, right? There's no kind of proven big.
No
really
precedent, right?
Yeah.
No big billion-dollar exit.
Yeah.
At least 2011 there wasn't. Right now it's looking a bit better.
Yeah, it's definitely looking better now. It's maybe it becomes easier to portray that vision for a social media startup now. So we were left to the third one, right? Of traction, and that's what we found is that traction was what we really had to sell, and that shapes your whole pitch, and everything comes together to the traction in the pitch, and that was the key thing, right? Maybe it makes sense to talk a little bit about our experiences raising funding and some of them
the actual processes,
and actually how we successfully went about doing it.
Yeah. I think in terms of real numbers, I think we spoke to. I think we had a spreadsheet, and maybe we can even make that public at some point. We spoke to 150 investors. Maybe you don't want to share all the investor names. They might not feel too happy about it. But we spoke to I think 150 investors either via email, and then in total we ended up with 17 investors, so roughly 10% success rate. And so that means out of 10 times we attempted to contact someone or get a meeting with someone, 9 times they said no, and 1 time they said
didn't even reply, right?
They didn't even reply.
Or learning is that people don't say no that much.
Exactly.
They want to keep the opportunity. They don't know what's going to happen. So it's normally that was something that caught us off guard a little bit, right? Because someone would say "Oh, sounds great. Let us know how it's going in 3 months." And we would be like, "Oh, that's pretty good."
Yeah. People.
That's basically a no.
Yeah. Exactly. So an investor, and that's understandable, right? Like they want to try and keep the door open because maybe tomorrow you're blowing up, and then they want to be in. But I think in terms of actual process, I think Joel and I we really realized because we were first-time founders, we didn't have any experience. It was hard for one person to do it. We really had to push each other.
Yeah.
So we'd sit down in a coffee shop and really do it almost like a sales process, right?
Yeah.
We find okay, let's find 10 investors.
Let's have a Trello board, right? Steps.
Exactly. I move them in along the pipeline, like introduction. That's the other thing, introduction, right? Always get introduction.
That was one thing we learned is approaching people cold rarely worked. And what started to work quite well was to try and get an introduction, and the closer the person is to the investor, maybe they've raised funding, received investment from them, or
they know them well.
Then it's much more powerful. I think one of the other interesting things is to kind of mention how we found the investors. I think that's something that people ask me a lot and don't really know how do you even find investors.
Yeah. I think we used AngelList a lot. AngelList really been amazing for us. I think a huge help sourcing investors, and you can sort by what they've previously done, which was really powerful. You can say hey, have they invested in other social media startups? Are they in the SaaS space? In our case.
Yeah.
So I think
I guess there's 2 approaches on AngelList, right? There's either you can find the whole list of investors, or you can look for startups. That's also quite good.
And see who's invested in that startup.
Find a startup that's in the similar space, but not necessarily competitive. See who's invested in them, and then they're probably a pretty good fit, right? And then you can click through to their profile, find people that you have in common with them, and they could be the people that would give you the introduction.
Exactly. Yeah. that's a couple of findings we've had when raising money. We actually have our slide deck out there as well. We can put that maybe at the bottom of the video.
I guess one thing to note is that we only raised from angels.
Yeah.
We didn't have too much success raising from VCs. We had a few meetings and it was definitely an interesting experience, but we found that angels were just a much better fit because they could get really excited about the product. And you know, it was something that they would use as well. And, you know, we had the struggle of the vision. I think that was a bit simpler with angels, right? So.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, it's just that, you know, I think not all of this might apply in every situation. We're still not that experienced with raising.
It's very anecdotal, really. So let us know what works for you guys. And
yeah, look forward to hearing from you in the comments.